Welcome to the Restoration Masterclass. I'm Vick Almighty, and in this series, I'm gonna take you step by step through some of the nastiest, most impossible sneakers you've ever seen. The goal is to prove to you that any sneaker has more than one life. These Jordan 5s have it all. Crumbled midsoles, broken down netting, yellowing, scuffs and scratches, they need a deep clean, everything is needed on this shoe. The craziest thing about these sneakers is the soles. I've never seen soles this worn down. These look hopeless, but I'm gonna break down every single problem, show you guys the exact same tools that I use, and give you tips so you can follow along at home. Trust me, you've never seen a restoration tutorial like this. All right, you guys have a pretty good idea of what's wrong with the shoe. Now let's talk about the tools needed for this project. I'm gonna lay out everything on the table so you can see exactly what I'm working with. If you want a full list, check out the description down below. For before and after purposes, I'm gonna put the left shoe to the side. We just need to focus on the right sneaker. Now there's a ton of work needed, like I mentioned, everything's wrong with the sneaker, but we gotta start somewhere. When it comes to my restorations, the very first thing I always do is give the shoe a good deep clean, inside and out. I like to work with the clean base as I'm working on the shoe. The thing with this one though, age has gotten to it. The midsoles are crumbling. It happens to every sneaker that has a polyurethane midsole. As you can see here, these midsoles are crumbling, basically turn into dust. This is called hydrolysis. It happens to every single polyurethane midsole. With that being said, if I was to go in and give the shoe a good deep clean, all of this stuff is just gonna get over the uppers, create a mess, and we don't want that. So in this case, deconstruction is the first thing we're gonna do. I gotta get rid of the laces, insole, and remove the entire sole and midsole. I'm gonna start with the easy stuff first though, and let's pop off the lace. So you can see here, yeah, this lace is not salvageable. It's falling apart. I don't even think these are original laces, so there's no point in trying to clean them up. It's better off to replace them. I'm still doing this without gloves. I'll be right back. Gotta remember, guys, gotta wear gloves throughout these restorations. You don't know where these shoes have been. Until the shoe's been cleaned up, I gotta keep these on. Shoelace ripped, that's how bad these are. All right, the lace is off. These are for sure trash. I mentioned that these are not original. One way I'm able to tell is by the thickness of it. It's way too thick. Also, the nip pattern is pretty off. Once you worked around Jordans for years like I have, you'll be able to tell off the rip when a lace is not authentic. Plus, the shoelace is completely chewed up. Plastic aglets are completely gone. I could replace those, but honestly, this shoelace is not worth it. So these are going in the trash. All right, next we gotta get the insole out. I'm surprised you still have insoles. This is original. Extremely beat and dirty. For now, I am gonna hang on to this. Actually, I don't know. You see that right there? There's a fat hole. That's from that thick ass toe that the guy had. There's two options. I can give this insole a good deep clean, put it in the washing machine and fully disinfect it, or depending on the donors that I get, I might replace it. For now, I'm gonna hang on to this. I might use it. So far, we got the easy stuff out of the way. Now we're on to the harder part of the deconstruction. We gotta get the midsole and the sole off. Once again, I wanna show you how crazy the sole is. I've never seen heel drag, middle drag, or front drag on a sole like this. I don't even know how you get it to this point. But either way, it's gotta get fully replaced. Now there's a couple of ways to get this sole off. The most important thing is I do not wanna cause any more damage to the uppers. We gotta be careful popping this off. Luckily, the glue's all dried out. The midsole's falling apart, so we shouldn't have too much of an issue with that. The only thing that's kind of holding this together though is the stitching on the toe cap. There's a couple of ways to remove this. I can either use a pick, I can pop off the stitching. An easier way is grabbing a blade and just going from the inside and cutting it all off. I'm gonna show you both ways right now. Now with the pick, you just wanna grab the first stitch, put the pick underneath the thread, pull up. You can do this with any shoe that has stitching, such as the Jordan 1, Dunk, 3, 4, and 5. Pretty easy. From there, kind of pull. That's one way. My opinion, that's a little bit the harder route. Easier route is just grabbing the blade, separating the upper from the toe cap, just slice away. For this though, you gotta be very careful and not cut the uppers, because that will cause more damage that we gotta fix later on. Right now, I'm slowly using a screwdriver to carefully remove the old broken down midsole. Easy peasy, guys. This stuff is like straight up cake. It comes right off. The trick is to not let the screwdriver scratch the uppers. Also, what I recommend using is a really, really thin flathead. The thinner, the better results you'll get. Right now I'm taking my time making sure all the polyurethane comes out smoothly. One thing I could do is just grab the midsole and rip it right off. It'll do the trick just fine, but a lot of that polyurethane is still gonna be on the uppers and I'm gonna have to go back either way and remove it. It's better off doing it now. All right, easy peasy. All the sides are separated. At this point, all I gotta do is pull the upper from the sole and it's gonna come right off. When removing the sole, you wanna try to get as much of the midsole off as possible so you don't have to worry about that later. Once the majority of the midsole and the sole is off, you can use your fingers to remove some of those chunks off. Cake. If you see some leftover string, just pull it out. Sole and the midsole's off. I did my best with the screwdriver to remove as much of the polyurethane off as possible during that process, but inevitably, a lot of it is still on there, specifically on the sides and the lasting board on the bottom. I don't wanna go straight to cleaning up the shoe because all that fine polyurethane is gonna get all over the upper and I'm not really gonna be cleaning the shoe. So I'm gonna grab the screwdriver one more time and a little scraper and just kind of scrape out the material until most of it is off. Got the majority of the old polyurethane off. There is still some on the uppers, but the only way to remove that is during the prep work later on. At the moment, we're gonna focus on the lasting board. In this specific case, I am gonna remove it. Most of the time when you're doing a restoration, you wanna leave that on. In this case, this shoe is extremely beat. I do need to go in and remove the netting and the tongues. The best way to do so is by removing this entire part. I'll use a blade to cut off all the stitching and it'll come right off. In the case that you are working on the shoe and don't plan on removing the lasting board, the best way to remove the polyurethane from this part is by heating it up and then with the scraper, removing it all. At the moment, it's still on there pretty good. I'm trying to scrape it off, but it's coming off in chunks. Once I heat it up, it'll slide right off. As you're using the heat gun, you wanna keep it going back and forth. You don't wanna keep it in one spot. It will burn a hole through the shoe. All right, got it nice and hot. Check this out. Like butter. Easy to remove, but like I mentioned, I'm not keeping this lasting board. So once again, I'm gonna grab the blade, cut all the stitching all around. As soon as that happens, it'll pop right off. I should be wearing a mask too. All right, we're getting there, you guys. All right, easy peasy. This step only took me about 10 minutes. This is a freaking mess, man. This is gonna take forever to get this job done. If you're at home doing a job like this and feeling overwhelmed, just take a deep breath. We got this. The next step should be pretty easy. We gotta get the netting off from the tongue and the sides. Let's get to it with the blade. Now this process isn't hard, but you gotta take your time to not mess up anything. So you can see here, the netting is extremely fragile. It's yellowed, it's cracking all around. The only way to fix that is by popping it off and replacing it with a new one. What's keeping it intact at the moment is the stitching all around. I gotta remove it in order for the netting to come out properly. For this, I'll be using a seam ripper and a blade. I'll start with the seam ripper to pop off some of the stitching. Once I find a nice opening, I'm gonna grab the blade and finish the job. It'll be a lot faster. I just gotta make sure I take my time. I'm gonna start with the tongue, go on the inside, cut the stitching off to pop it off. First, I'm gonna be using a seam ripper to make an opening before I use the blade. Just be careful not to cut yourself or the shoe. Let the blade do all the work. One netting down, onto the second. The reason why I took off the tongue from the upper is because it's a lot easier to take off the netting and replace it once the tongue is fully off. I am gonna keep the rest of the tongue original. I just gotta get this old piece off. Same exact method, I'm gonna use a seam ripper to pop open a couple of stitches to create an opening. Then with the rest, use the blade. Now be very careful with the step, you guys. If you're not careful, the tip of the seam ripper can just cut right through the leather. Same exact thing with the blade. All right, 2 down, 1 to go. Let's get this off with no issues. That's what I get for rushing, man. I can't believe I just did that.